Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sideline Stories. I am your host, Chase McTaggart, and today we have a very special guest, my professor, and also a remote operations technician specialist at Versant Media, Brian Thorne. How are we doing today?
Good. How you doing, Chase? Good to see you.
Great to have you. So I just kind of wanted to immediately jump into, your career beginnings and, where you got your start. So you finished your Bachelor of Science in Media Studies here at Sacred Heart. And, before jumping into your professional work, how did that kind of experience here at SHU ultimately shape where you wanted to end up?
Well, I am a true believer. I'm like a lifer for Sacred Heart University, and it was because of how they approached me when I came. I had transferred. I went to Eastern Connecticut State, and for personal reasons, I had to transfer back to Fairfield County. And I looked at Fairfield University, I looked at Quinnipiac, and I was looking at Sacred Heart. And honestly, Sacred Heart was last on the list. And when I came for a mid-year admission session, I said, "Hey, where can I be creative as possible? Where do I get a camera and I get to run around campus and make film and get credit for it?" And they said, Dr. Jim Castingay, he's sitting over there in the corner. Go talk to him. And it was, I would say, his overall like the welcoming vibe and the creativity. Like we were just free to create whatever we wanted. Um, really without judgment and with plenty of feedback about how to get better. But once I entered the program, I was all in on Sacred Heart. So I thought I wanted to be the next Quentin Tarantino. I thought I wanted to make movies, and I would say that I was in school with a bunch of people that had the same idea, and so we were highly competitive with one another. But once I stepped foot onto the campus of Sacred Heart, I just knew it just felt like home, and that's the number one reason I've decided to stay for so long. It's the professors I had when I came through. Some of them are still here, and they taught me how to shoot. They taught me how to edit. They taught me how to be creative. And they really set the foundation for what I love doing, which is creating media.
I would say you hit the nail right on the head, and that's kind of how I feel here too. Definitely once I came to Sacred Heart, realized like what kind of opportunities were at the helm here. I mean, compared to the last school that I had attended under my undergrad, like you said, I mean, plenty of opportunities to be creative here. Um, so now transitioning into, you were at SHU, kind of heading into your professional life. You did start off your career kind of freelancing, doing Veritas Productions. Can you tell me like what sparked that what inspired you to launch your own company so early in your own career?
Yeah, I think for me it was I knew that you didn't just jump straight into an LA market or into a New York market without getting the reps underneath your belt. And so I started to think, where could I kind of, where could I kind of shoehorn in on some available work? And I looked at a place called Palace Productions in Norwalk. They were producing local commercials and they had local clients. And in Fairfield County, there's enough corporate business and personal business that I thought, you know what, let me start with this. And my start was almost accidental in the sense that the first gig I booked, I talked to you briefly about it, but it was right place at the right time, and I got to do a graphic, a motion graphic video for Benihana
Right.
Corporation, and that gave me the startup money that I needed to go out, form an LLC, and then create Veritas Productions. And Veritas was just the brainchild of I knew a bunch of people that were really creative, and there were a lot of undergrads at Sacred Heart that I worked with, and I said I want to create more with these guys. So the original foundation of that group were guys like Manny Santiago and other great shooters that came from Sacred Heart,
Very cool.
and yeah, we just kind of had a little fraternity of creative people, and so I wanted to get money flowing, so I created Veritas to just make corporate and personal videos within Fairfield County.
So now when you talk about working freelance, right? I mean, your roles, especially considering, you work in between many different companies, vary constantly between production, engineering, field work. How do you balance adaptability with mastering your craft?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think what it is when I started, that transition, once I went into live sports, I knew how to frame shots and I knew how to edit. So I had the right foundation, and I had been on so many live shoots that I kind of knew how to troubleshoot on the spot and problem solve on the spot and roll with the punches. I think all of a sudden when you work in sports, it gets condensed. And then, I remember shooting things over and over. And that first time I did I had the adrenaline of the live sports, I started thinking, oh, like this is really where I want to be, because there was something about it. Like I had never felt that feeling in my chest of right when the game was about to start or right when the show was about to start. My heart was really beating out of my chest. And recently, I've been hearing a lot about, this phrase imposter syndrome. So when you asked your question, this is what I thought about. I just said yes to everything. It's like, do you want to do this? Yes. Do you know how to do this? Yes. Do you know how to do audio? Yes. I just said yes to everything. And I didn't think it was imposter syndrome. I just thought two things. I had confidence that I could figure it out. And I also had a small network of people I could rely on. And so I think starting out, you are a master at none. It's like you just have, you know, uh, enough knowledge to be successful here and enough knowledge to be successful here. And then when you're on that job, you're just learning on the fly. And I think that's what we try to do with our program, with our grad program here, is we want you to kind of get your hands on everything. So you're just familiar enough. If somebody said, hey, you know, Chase, can you do, graphics on Expression, or, can you do replay on Ross Mira, or can you be the sideline reporter, for a hockey game? We want you to kind of do it all so you can say yes and go on site and be successful, even though you don't necessarily know. For me, the expertise came with the years of reps. And,
Right.
now when I go on site, it feels like home to me. There's certain shows I go on and it's like I know every face there and it feels great. But it wasn't always like that. So I do laugh when I hear imposter syndrome. I'm like, I always say, no, I think I just had a false sense of confidence that I could do anything.
I think that's really key, being confident in yourself in, especially in the start of your career. Um, when you talk about saying yes to everything, I was going to ask you, was there ever a time in which you said yes to something and then you realized you were in over your head a little bit too much?
Absolutely. Um, yeah, definitely, for sure. And I think you learn, just to be candid, you learn so much more from your failures than your successes. There was a couple of times that I said yes to things that I had no business being part of, and I got away with it. But there's a few times I can remember saying yes to something and failing, and there was repercussions after, or I never heard back from those entities. And I could think of one specifically. I think I did like HBO boxing in New York, and I thought it would be easier than the other sports I was doing, and it was not. And I failed fairly miserably at it, and I never heard back from that crewing. I never did any more HBO boxing after that. But I learned so much more. I learned a couple things that I hadn't done the work before I went to New York for that show. I hadn't done the research for the undercards of who was boxing. I didn't do the research for going to breaks, coming out of breaks. And, I probably bit off more than I should chew, but um, I would still say yes again if someone said, would you like to do boxing? But I would certainly know a lot more going in than I did last time. So I do think you learn from those, even from those failures, more than your successes.
I think that's absolutely true in a lot of lessons in life. So now kind of transitioning to NFL films, part of your career. So you spent nearly a decade with NFL films, which is very legendary for its storytelling style. What was the biggest lesson you learned from that experience? Like, what did you take away from that?
Um, to me, it was about the business, I would say, of the Super Bowl. So it was Super Bowl specific. And what I didn't realize, it's kind of wild. So we worked in the NFL International Compound, and what that is that if you live in the United States, you see the domestic feed, and that was rotating between three entities every 3 years. So it was Fox, CBS, and trying to think who was the third one, like NBC.
Right.
And so every 3 years they would have the Super Bowl. So that means if you live in California, New York, you are watching the Super Bowl. Well, you know, NFL Films and NFL Network broadcast the Super Bowl to the rest of the world, and they don't see the same feed that we do. So what was really eye-opening about this was is that if you live anywhere else on the planet, you are watching a completely different feed of the Super Bowl. So what does that mean? It means you have a compound, a domestic compound, where they get down to the home advantage. So Fox rolls their trucks in, they plug into all the I/O panels and all the JBT boxes and the patch bays. The international compound has to be built up from nothing. It has to come out of nothing. So we would spend 3 weeks there, 21 days there before the game to build this up. And then your clients come in and it is German TV. It is TV Azteca. It is, so you have South America, you have Europe, NHK from Japan. So you have this compound that has, I mean, you're broadcasting to probably 150 countries, but
Wow.
then for an added cost, they could bring in their own trucks, their own commentators, their own, and you realize the scale. Um, this is a 3 hour event, and you get to see them build up the NFL experience, the media day before it, all of the hotels, all of the local business it drums up. You get to see like kind of the business behind it and the halftime show. And I mean, for a 3 hour event, you see that this is a 3 month process to put on this one show. It really is like the largest show on earth. So for me, I got to learn the business of that a lot more. And so basically there's a world feed director. He's or she's cutting cameras, and then they're feeding that out to all these other countries. And then all those other countries have their own commentators talking over it. And then if they wanted kind of their own cutaway shots, they could pay more and get extra cameras on the field, extra cameras in the end zones, extra cameras up top. So it's kind of wild. The site survey happens 9 months in advance, and then you're working with the logistical people, and then you're working with all of these. Like the funniest part was always being in catering. You would hear 17 different languages simultaneously, and you really realize that the juggernaut that NFL Films, NFL Network, the NFL itself, and the Super Bowl are. So it was really kind of the business side. I'd watched a lot of football. I didn't understand the business side of it.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds incredible. I actually just learned quite a bit there just listening to you talk about, the production side of it, and, I didn't know a lot of that, so that's incredible to hear. Kinda talking about, the global aspect or, like, the, travel side of sports. You live in Arizona, but you work all across the country, and especially here in Connecticut, at Sacred Heart and whatnot. What is it like balancing such a travel-heavy schedule, throughout the year?
I think another great question, and it's a very real question. I think a lot of people, if you're looking at it on Instagram or I think, oh, this looks great. Like anything else, there's a lot of benefits, but the reality is there are also some setbacks too. So um, I think what really helps is getting into a relationship with somebody that understands the lifestyle. So, I'm very fortunate that my girlfriend, she was on air talent. She used to be on the news. She understands why I have to go away for prolonged periods of time, and she understands the nature of the business. But you do get to a certain age that I have started turning down shows if it just feels like 3 weeks or 4 weeks away from home. It's just a little bit much. You don't
Right,
want to miss those moments. And I think a big part of this business is sacrifice. When you're younger, you say yes to everything. And I think that you can easily work yourself into the ground. I think as you get older or as you start a family, you start to realize that these moments aren't forever. And you have to figure out, how do I balance, it's very lucrative, but how do I balance, making the money I want to make, but also seeing my family enough? And, you
absolutely.
know, yeah, I think, a lot of my friends in the business have had failed marriages, probably because of it. And I think being away from home for prolonged periods of time can make people behave in different ways. So, um, the balance to me, it's figured out. It's you slowly. I think when you're younger, if you're your age, it's like, yeah, go crazy.
Right.
take every show possible. If someone says, "Do you want to go to the Olympics for a month and a half?" You're like, "Yes," say yes. I think once you're trying to manage a family, you have to start to think at what cost.
And so, in the environment that you work in, things are changing constantly. How do you stay sharp and creative in the kind of environment where, there's a lot going on and you're also moving around all the time?
Yeah. For me, it's just being there. So there's working the NFL draft the last few years. I feel like every draft they are bringing in new technology. So ESPN is great at really pushing the boundaries. But if it's AR or VR or whatever it may be, if you watch the draft, there are so many things happening from a technology standpoint. But even I would say with hockey or with golf, I mean, you're seeing the technology is always kind of. I think every season it's like, what can we add? What can we add? So being present is a big part of it. So I know we spoke a little bit about recently. I went to studio robotics that are out in the field, and it was something um, that basically they said, "Hey, would you like to learn about this thing?" Me, I go, this industry might be moving in that direction where you're going to have more robotic cameras, less manned cameras. So I
Right.
kind of had that thought of, yeah, I do want to learn this because 5 years from now, some of the jobs I have might not exist anymore, but I want to try to adapt and still be part of the industry because I love it. I do love it to death. So, but it's kind of that like survive and advance. It's like figure out your place. So to me, it's just being present for it and asking some questions. It's not just sitting there, sitting on your phone. Like when I see, some guys, it's like, oh, hey, like, tell me about this technology. So, yeah, ask the questions. Just never be like a bump on a log, on a remote. Just always ask questions.
I think that's great advice. And kind of stemming off what you talk about with, AI and the adaptation of technology with with cameras and all that in production. What would you say is the biggest trend coming up in production media space? What kind of changes are you seeing, like along the lines of what you're just talking about?
Um, to me, it's probably, I feel like the gap is getting larger between what the viewer is willing to accept and what we as television producers want to make. I think COVID played a major part of that, where we used to want to do studio shows that looked really sharp, and we wanted to do everything as clean, really blowing it out. And then during COVID, a lot of people were doing news broadcasts or shows from their living rooms and from their basements, and you start watching the news and it looks like two guys like us
Right,
on our webcams, and that became acceptable to viewers. And so for me, I think it's there are some really great shows out there. Um, let's take some big football shows: Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. That kind of thing where you're like, those still have big budgets and they still look like big shows. It's the studio shows, it's the some of the smaller sports that are being all done Remy style, where they don't look as good as they used to, but the viewer doesn't seem to mind. So I feel like the gap has just been getting larger between sports viewers are willing to just kind of accept, I mean, I watch plenty of podcasts that this is it.
right. Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, nothing too
and
crazy here.
yeah. And I mean, I think about even big personalities like Dan Patrick or like Rich Eisen, or, their shows still are they're souped up podcasts. And so it's low production cost, but you still get viewership. And I think it's because how the sports fan like that is your age has grown up with it and willing to accept it. So for me, it's like, producers still want to produce things at a really high level with all the bells and whistles. And I think that a lot of media companies are saying, hey, we don't need to spend that much money on it because, there's a lot of podcasts that make a lot of money that are very inexpensive to make.
Right.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's a great point. I wasn't expecting to go that route, but I think that what you said, honestly, is very true. I think the impact of social media as well, kind of, everything's like very quick, short. People can't sit through a 22-minute show now most of the times. So I think what you said is completely correct. And that is definitely a trend to out keep a look for. Um, so kind of transitioning over to a little bit of your career success. You were a three-time Emmy Award winner. What did those wins mean to you, and how did they change how you approached your work?
So yes, I do appreciate it. I always say for those that can do math, I'm a 10-time nominee, so that means I lost how many times, Chase?
7.
Seven. I'm a 7-time Emmy Award loser. Um, no, for all of that is to me is like I think there's plenty of people that are wildly talented that don't have Emmys. And I think I'm one of the fortunate people that truly lucky to get on a larger crew or a bigger crew for an event that was seen by a lot of people. And we got an Emmy for that. So to me, that's all teamwork. It's one of those things. It's not, modesty at all. It's the people that I was surrounded by. I think everybody performed at a super high level, and it is great to be recognized. I think that if I didn't have one, I would be upset. Again, my girlfriend likes to mock me because I am very interested when it's Emmy season. It's like, hey, did we get nominated? Or,
Right.
hey, did we win again? I think once you have one, you feel a little validated. But truly, it is like that team concept. So I try to talk about it at the university when you're doing your studio shows, when we're doing our live events. It's like you're only as good as the weakest part of your team. And
Absolutely.
if we were doing a national championship game and we won an Emmy for that, it was like everybody performed at such a high level. And that is from, people that were like parking the trucks to, the directors and the producers and everyone in between. It was just like the whole team, kicked butt. And so those always feel good because you guys, it's like we all did it, we all nailed it, and then finally you're recognized. And if there's that competitive spirit because you're up against other shows from CBS, from Fox, from NBC, whatever it may be.
Absolutely. And I think it's always great to be recognized. You always want to feel like your work is being appreciated and your efforts are being recognized. But I think I wanted to get into a little bit about, you spent a lot of your career in golf. Um, was there a moment in any of your golf coverage, like a major, a specific shot, a behind the scenes moment, anything that stands out as just unforgettable?
Yeah, for sure. So I always tell people I love football. I'm a massive football fan, but man, football, it's cold. Golf, once I realized, and I'm not going to lie, I started to get older. I took the easier, softer way. If I could do a pre and post game on golf every week, that would be perfect. It's going to be somewhere nice and warm. We're going to
Right.
do, 1 hour shows. Sounds fantastic. But I was at the Masters when Tiger won. And I think, when I really got into golf, it was kind of after all of his troubles and the game was kind of searching for, who's the next Tiger, but nobody drove the needle like Tiger did.
Right.
And, you know, there are plenty of moments I remember as being oddly unique. I did the Masters in November. There was nobody there. It was the COVID year. That was like a surreal experience, and there's plenty of other moments at the Open Championship overseas, which I think is fantastic, or Ryder Cup moments, which were great. But for me, I think like watching, being there when Tiger won his last Masters. Finally, it was like because by the time I started working in golf, it was kind of past his prime, and people were thinking he would never win another one. So at least I was present for his last one. And I think when it comes to golf, there's no equal to that. So it was a great week. We got to interview, Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player and a bunch of other Masters winners, Nick Faldo, and then we watched as Tiger won. To be there, it was really kind of cool. And obviously, I could sort of dovetail and say this year when Rory won and finished the Grand Slam and the emotion of that, it was electric. So to be a part of those events, I feel like Masters is hard to get into, so it makes you feel like a little bit more
Prestigious.
special because you were there. Yeah, you know. So yeah, those are definite moments that you think back to for sure. You know, and it's just kind of like, wow, you know, it's work, but you know, every once in a while you do get caught up in the emotion of it.
It sounds like those are 2 really unforgettable experiences, like you said. I mean, how could you forget those? Those are very cool, to be there in the present moment. So now kinda getting into, like I've said, you're a professor here at SHU. You've been a graduate professor at Sacred Heart, for nearly 2 decades. How does teaching influence your approach as a professional and vice versa?
Um, another, you know, another great question. I think that I love what I do for um, NBC and for Golf Channel and for ESPN or for NFL Network. But you know, it is a, you know, you're with, I would say people that have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years sometimes. The university is like what I love. Like I love that. I mean, every August, I mean, it's going to sound so corny. Every August, it's like the saddest week, and then it's followed up by the most exciting week of the year. So every August we graduate, you know, a graduate class, and it's like, you know, we get fairly close over the year, and because our classes are smaller, you know, it's like nobody kind of falls through the cracks. It's like we have a relationship with every student, and so you graduate them, you know, and it's painful. You're
Right,
happy, you're excited for them, but it hurts. You hand them a diploma, and you know, half of them you're like, I don't know if I'm going to see them again. And then the following week, you have a new cohort come in, and it's like, okay, I wonder how this group is going to gel. I wonder, you know, and the excitement I think on campus that September in the fall, and it's like bringing together people from all over the country, and you're trying to figure out like, you know, who are going to be the superstars, and you know, who am I going to have to push a little bit. So you go from this terribly like you're celebrating your students, but internally I'm sad, and
right.
then I immediately transition into excited. And you know, if you don't think as professors that we, you know, we still get nervous that first day, you know, we bring you all together, and it's like, what's this group going to be like? It's like a nervous excitement, but it's excitement. But to me, it's if all I did was follow sports, I think something would be missing. So for me, I mean, I love teaching. Like that's the love is because, and the difference with undergrads and graduates, I mean, everybody in our program has signed up to be there. Everyone has
Right.
made this decision. Hey, I want to do more school. I really
Yep.
love sports, so I'm getting like the people that I want, and I think it makes me better when I'm on site, because if I don't know something, I'm always trying to learn something because I want to bring something back to you guys. So I think it makes me better on site because I want to ask as many questions as possible. I want to talk to people outside of my department to try to figure out what they're doing, so I can bring stuff back to you guys. I think that, and then what you guys do is you guys rejuvenate me. So if I haven't done a show in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, by the time I get back out there, you know, I think I'm probably more excited than everybody else I work with. You know, I'm the one that's, you know, pumped up, hugging everybody. Hey, it's great to see you, you know, because I've had you guys in between, and you guys really keep me younger than I am and kind of rejuvenate me. So it's a great balance for me.
It sounds like it, and, always appreciate your classes, lots to learn in those. If you're listening and you're not a Sacred Heart student, definitely check out the program. You will not, regret it. But, just wanted to kind of finalize with some advice and reflection for students like myself, young professionals out there who might be listening. Um, so a couple of things. After 20 plus years in this industry, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned, about staying relevant and being successful in such a competitive world?
I think success comes from a few things. I think one is just you got to work your butt off. You know, you have to. Don't be a complainer. You know, just go and just show up early and stay late. And you know, if the call time is 5 a.m., you're there at 5 and you're ready to work, and you might be there until 11 p.m. or midnight. You know, those are your times to shine. You know, when everyone else is kind of exhausted. To me, it's I always have that in my head. It says push yourself, push yourself. So for me, it's first is do the work. Second is be genuine. I think that this is all about relationships. It's all about networking, but not in a fake way or a phony way or a cheesy way. It's just go have lunch with people, go have dinner with people. Don't be the lone wolf. I've gotten so many jobs by simply having dinner with somebody. They start talking about what's going on 4 or 5 months from now. It's like, oh, I'd love to get on that. So if people see that you work hard, they're happy to bring you on. But then the second part of that is that networking. So I think it's always be positive. Always the answer is never no. Like if someone's like, hey, can we do this? It's not like no. It's always, it might take us a little time, but we'll figure it out. Or it might take us a few hours, but we will make this happen. In this industry, it really is like it's all about figuring out how to make it happen. So I don't know. For me, the recipe for success is hard work plus real relationships and just being genuine. And if you don't love it, then, there's plenty of other jobs in this industry, but I do love it. And I love the 18, 19-hour days. I feel like that's where you see what people are made of. It's easy to be in a good mood when you're, working 8-hour days, but um, yeah, I mean, success is to me, that's the recipe. Be genuine, be helpful, and really work your butt off. But my friends, the next wedding I'm going to is somebody I work with, and I'm the best man at his wedding. And this is a work friend. It's because that's how close you become with people. And I think that's where we differ from like an office job or a corporate job. We live together. We're staying in hotels together, we're eating together, we're working together, we're together all the time. And that's where you build these like great unbreakable bonds.
I think that's great advice, and I think that's incredibly true, in regards to the industry. Just wanted to finish off with a final question as far as, so what's something you wish you knew at the beginning of your career that could have saved you a lot of time?
I don't know. That's the first one that I feel stumped by. Um, you know, I I think that like every young man, I think you judge success by, let's say, how well you're doing financially, what
Right.
car you're driving, what clothes you can afford. I think if someone told me just relax a bit, it's going to come in time. I wanted this success like instantly. And I also thought that, I was always kind of, uh, being competitive, I was always comparing myself to other people, but maybe not for the right reasons. And so to my younger self, I would say, don't judge people by right what they're, how much money they are making or what they're driving or things of that nature. For me, the way I judge success now is how happy people are. I mean, how truly like peaceful they are inside, how legitimately happy they are. So to me, I was always I just wanted the visual success and not thinking about also doing internal work. And I think that is equally as important. Right now, for me, what defines success is, am I happy on a daily basis? Do I feel good on a daily basis? And so that's what I would tell my younger self is that don't get caught up in the I want it now, 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 now. I want everything now. It's going to take a few years. So when I started working in the business, I did not have a full calendar of events. And it took years before got a full calendar. And then a few years later, you're turning down jobs. But that just takes a while. So it's hard to slow down. I feel like as a young man, it's hard to slow down sometimes and to be content with who you are and where you are and saying, okay, I'm in my mid 20s. It's okay to be here. Or I'm 30 years old. It's okay to be here. So I think it's being okay with knowing the process takes a while.
I think that's great advice, and I think that's a great, point to end the podcast on. Did you wanna say anything else before we wrap things up, or
No, I mean, you are the host of it though. And I want to say that, I've told you this 16 times, so I hate to sound like a broken record, but to me, you have all of those necessary assets for success in this industry. And my favorite line ever, when we were interviewing you for the program and you just said, I'm built for this,
Yeah.
and that's what this industry needs is people that aren't afraid to do work and people that aren't afraid to, to even get outside their comfort zone. And I just love that phrase. I mean, I feel like, you should have a shirt that says like, I'm built for this.
We could get it going, I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
definitely use some
maybe
some revenue coming in.
that's the name of the podcast should be I'm built for this because no, it's such a great statement. And I think that that's the attitude. If anyone wants to be successful, I don't think just in this industry, but any industry, it's that like, hey, I'm built for this. I'm ready to take on what's going to come with this, the good, the bad, the good days, the hard days, um, but not being afraid. And I thought that's the way you came into the program. It was like, hey, I'm not going to be afraid to do. Like, it's like whatever you guys need me to do, I'm going to do it. I think more people can learn from you. Um, that like if you want to make it in this industry, you gotta feel that way inside. You're like, hey, I'm ready to go. Like I'm built for this. So I just appreciate you having me on, and it's been great, painless, and yeah, I hope somebody learned something.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say I think you hit a lot of points throughout the conversation here. Definitely a lot to take away. But like you said, I am built for this. I'm looking forward to where this takes me. I started this podcast to network with people. There's definitely been some opportunities that arise behind the scenes that I can't necessarily get into right now. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate your time. Thank you. And yeah, this has been it for the Sideline Stories podcast, episode 6 with Professor Brian Thorne, 3-time Emmy winner. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely, Chase. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, and look forward to the rest of the series.
Thank you.
All right.